murder. But now, the appellate court in New Hampshire has overturned that conviction and sent it back. Adam Montgomery's murder conviction for his daughter Harmony has been overturned, and this one's baffling on many different levels. The first level is, if those of you who watched the trial, like Adam Montgomery didn't even show up to the trial.
He put her in a duffel bag. He put the duffel bag in a snowbank. Then he took her to the pizzeria where he worked and put her in the freezer. When he finally got an apartment, he put her in the drop ceiling until it started leaking. And then, when there was nothing left to hide, he dismembered what remained and sent her down the drain pipes. His name is Adam Montgomery, and a court just gave him a second chance. Let that sink in for a moment before we go any further. Because today, we are not just talking about what Adam Montgomery did to his 5-year-old daughter Harmony. We are talking about what happens when the legal system, designed to protect the innocent, produces an outcome that feels like it is protecting exactly the wrong person. We are going to walk through a real appellate opinion, line by line. And by the time we are done, you will understand not just what happened, but why it happened. Why some legal scholars agree with it, why others don't, and what it tells every single one of us about the machinery of justice that operates in our name every day. Stay with me, because this one is going to take everything you think you know about eyewitness testimony, about fair trials, about the rules that govern what a jury is allowed to think, and it is going to turn all of it upside down. Harmony Montgomery was born into a situation that the system was supposed to prevent. Her mother, Crystal, had a substance abuse problem and was fighting her own battles in courtrooms across Massachusetts, trying to get clean and maintain custody of multiple children across multiple proceedings. Her father, Adam Montgomery, had a criminal record long enough to wallpaper a room. He was in and out of prison, he was using drugs, he had no steady job, no home of his own, and no documented capacity to care for a child. In February of 2019, he moved into his grandmother's house in Manchester, New Hampshire, with his wife Kayla and their 2 young biological children. He had nothing except a plan.
For those of you who don't know the background, Harmony was this little angel, 5 years old when she was murdered. But she had a mom who had a substance abuse problem, a dad who was in and out of prison all the time, also using and abusing drugs. And there was a custody battle. And the motivation for Adam Montgomery to get custody of his daughter was the government checks that came along with his daughter, who had some special needs. Okay? So keep that in mind. There's a custody battle for this little girl. Mom has multiple children from multiple parents and is in different courtrooms on the same day, misses the hearing, and then the judge in Massachusetts just hands the child over to Adam Montgomery, who had no place for her to stay, had no job. It was a mess. It was a total mistake by the system. It was a mistake by that judge. But the only one who pays the price is a little girl.
Harmony had special needs, and with special needs came government assistance checks. Monthly, reliable, cash that arrived regardless of whether the person collecting it was a fit parent, a drug addict, or a violent felon. Adam Montgomery wanted custody of his daughter, not because he loved her, because she came with a paycheck.
Daughter was the government checks that came along with his daughter, who had some special needs. Okay? So keep that in mind. There's a custody battle for this little girl. Mom has multiple children from multiple parents and is in different courtrooms on the same day, misses the hearing, and then the judge in Massachusetts just hands the child over to Adam Montgomery, who had no place for her to stay, had no job.
A custody hearing was scheduled in Massachusetts. Harmony's mother missed it. She was not absent because she had given up. She was in treatment at an inpatient facility, fighting to get clean, simultaneously required to appear in a different courthouse that same day for a separate custody proceeding involving another child. She was, by any reasonable measure, trying. She just couldn't be in two places at once. And when she wasn't in that courtroom, the judge handed 5-year-old Harmony to Adam Montgomery without a full hearing, without a proper investigation of his fitness as a parent, without, apparently, a meaningful look at the rap sheet. Just handed her over.
Okay? That's who the judge in Massachusetts handed Harmony over to, without even hearing from the mother, who herself was being treated, had gone away to be treated at an inpatient facility, and then couldn't make it to the courtroom because she had another hearing involving the custody of another child in another courthouse. So you don't cut the mom a break at all because you don't like the mom, right? That's what this, I mean,
And Adam Montgomery took his daughter and left Massachusetts immediately. He drove to New Hampshire, where the oversight was thin and the checks would follow. That is the first failure of the system in Harmony's story. It will not be the last. In July of 2019, Adam's uncle returned home from a 3-week trip. He walked into the kitchen and saw Harmony standing there with a black eye. He asked her what happened. Before Harmony could answer, Adam spoke for her. He said, and this is a direct quote from the appellate record, "She didn't do anything. I bashed her around the house." Read that again.
So the defendant, Adam's uncle, sees little Harmony with a black eye. The uncle asked the victim what she had done, and the defendant answered, "She didn't do anything. I bashed her around the bleeping house." Okay, at that point, how does he still have custody of this child? Who dropped the ball here? The uncle testified that the defendant said he put the victim in charge to watch her 5-month-old brother. So he put Harmony, 5 years old, in charge to watch her 5-month-old brother, who's her half-brother, while the defendant used the bathroom. And when the defendant returned, he found the victim with her hands over the baby's mouth and his lips were supposedly blue. So he's making an allegation that Harmony was doing harm to her little brother, 5-year-old Harmony, who's asked to watch a baby.
He did not deflect. He did not offer an alternative explanation. He volunteered a confession of child abuse in front of a witness in his own kitchen without any apparent concern that it would matter. And in a functioning system, it should have mattered enormously. Harmony should have been removed that day, but she wasn't. And the uncle's account of what Adam said that afternoon would later become one of the central pieces of evidence in a murder trial. And then, the very reason that murder conviction was thrown out. We will come back to that, because the legal machinery at the center of this case turns on that single admission in that kitchen. But first, you need to understand what December 7th, 2019 looked like.
Now we flash forward to the murder, or at this point now, the alleged murder, because it's been overturned. On December 7th, 2019, right? So July, August, September, October, November, December, right? 5-6 months later. The victim, Harmony, had an accident in the morning, meaning, a young girl who lives in a terrible situation could have nerves and has an accident in the morning. Later that morning, the family drove to a methadone clinic where Kayla and the defendant took turns going in.
By December, Adam and Kayla and their children were not living in his grandmother's house anymore. They were living in their car. A 5-year-old girl, no bathroom, no stability, 2 drug-addicted adults who had taken her for the financial benefit she represented and were now unable to provide even the most basic conditions of human dignity. On the morning of December 7th, Harmony had an accident. She was 5 years old, living in a car, under constant stress and fear, and she had an accident. Adam's response was to yell at her and hit her in the head. The family drove to a methadone clinic. That is a facility where people receiving treatment for opioid addiction receive daily doses of medication to manage withdrawal and dependency. It is not a recreational destination. It is a medical one. And the fact that both Kayla and Adam were patients there is important context for the state in which Harmony was living. While they took turns going inside, Harmony waited in the car. When Adam returned from the clinic, he found she had had a second accident. He started hitting her again.
Let's get back to this case and this appeal. So the court found when the defendant returned to the car, he realized the victim had had another accident and started yelling at her and hitting her in the head repeatedly. Okay? They're living in a car at this point. They're literally living in a car, a 5-year-old. No bathroom. Drug addicted stepmom and father who clearly don't have the nurturing abilities to be parents, but grabbed Harmony for the paycheck that came with her. And by the way, after the murder, after she's dead, they continue to get the checks.
They drove toward Burger King. Harmony was in the back seat. She was crying. She was making a moaning sound. She was in obvious distress. Adam told her to shut up. And then at every red light on that drive, he reached back from the driver's seat and punched her in the head. At every red light. He stopped when they reached Burger King. With the last punch, he said in what witnesses described as a scared voice that he felt something, that he thought he had really hurt her this time. He felt something. He kept driving.
From the methadone clinic, the defendant drove the family to Burger King. While they were driving, the victim was in the back seat, crying and making a strange moaning-like noise. She's in distress. Do they do anything to help the child who's in distress? Like, oh, you're in a car? Drive to the emergency room. Does not happen. The defendant told the victim to shut up, and at each red light at which they stopped, the defendant reached back and repeatedly punched the victim in the head, leaning over from the driver's seat at the red light, punching Harmony in the head. The defendant stopped hitting the victim when they got to Burger King. With the final punch, he said in a scared voice that he felt something. And
the car broke down later that afternoon, stalled at a traffic light. As Adam and Kayla began pulling the children out of the vehicle, Harmony did not respond. She did not move. She was gone. Their car was also their home. They had been driving around with a dead child in the back seat and had not known it, or had not acknowledged it. The distinction matters, and a jury would have to decide which.
The victim did not respond, and they realized she's dead. Think about that. You're driving around with a dead child in the back. You don't even realize it. You don't realize it until your car/mobile home breaks down. As the defendant and Kayla were getting the children out of the car, the victim did not respond. They realized she had died. The defendant got a duffel bag from the trunk because that's what you do. That's what you do when your child passes away or you think your child is in medical distress. You get a duffel bag. Put the victim's body in it and brought it back to the friend's apartment complex where the defendant put it in a snowbank. He put it in a snowbank. He brought it to the pizzeria where he worked, put it in the freezer. This is all true. This is true. Put it in the drop ceiling when they finally get an apartment until it starts leaking. This is all true until he got rid of the body down the drain pipes after dismembering Harmony, after she had decomposed.
What happened next is documented in the appellate record in clinical, devastating detail. Adam retrieved a duffel bag from the trunk. He placed Harmony's body inside it. He put it in a snowbank. He moved it to the pizzeria where he worked and placed it in a walk-in freezer. When he and Kayla eventually secured an apartment, he put her in the drop ceiling. When the ceiling started leaking from what was inside it, he dismembered her body and disposed of the remains through the drain pipes. Harmony Montgomery was never found. She has never been found. To this day, her mother does not know where she is. And through all of it, through every relocation of that duffel bag, through every week of silence, through every stage of what can only be described as the systematic erasure of a child, Adam Montgomery kept cashing the government checks that came in Harmony's name.
And by the way, after the murder, after she's dead, they continue to get the checks because no one knows that Harmony is gone. They keep cashing the checks.
Because no one knew she was gone. No one had reported her missing. Not a single person in her life picked up a phone and said, "Where is Harmony?" Nobody. Now, pause here, because I want you to really sit with what I am about to tell you next. Because this is where the legal story gets complicated in ways that are genuinely difficult, even for people who understand the law well. Adam Montgomery was tried for the murder of Harmony. He was also tried, in the same trial, for the assault that his uncle had witnessed back in July. The one where he had said out loud that he had bashed her around the house. The jury convicted him on both counts. He was sentenced. He did not even attend the trial. There was literally an empty chair at the defense table. An empty chair was convicted of second-degree murder.
But our system of justice demands everyone gets a fair trial, everything passes through constitutional scrutiny, and it doesn't matter if you are the worst of the worst like Adam Montgomery, who is. You're going to get the same legal analysis. And that's not why I disagree with the opinion. I don't disagree with the opinion because of who Adam Montgomery is. I disagree with the opinion because of what the ruling is.
And still, Montgomery's legal team appealed, and the New Hampshire Supreme Court heard that appeal. And then, not long ago, they overturned the murder conviction and ordered a new trial. Here is why. And here is where you are going to learn something that most people who are not lawyers have never had to think about before. Because it is subtle, and it is real, and it is the kind of thing that can determine whether justice lands or whether it disappears into a procedural gap. The legal principle at the center of this ruling is called joinder. Joinder simply means the combining of multiple charges into a single trial. Courts allow it when the charges are closely related, when trying them together saves time and resources, and when it serves justice rather than undermines it. But courts are also required to recognize when joinder crosses a line. When combining two charges in a single proceeding creates a risk that the jury will use evidence from one charge to improperly decide the other. That is exactly what the New Hampshire Appellate Court found happened here.
While the jury heard no evidence that Kayla had ever physically assaulted the victim, it heard evidence from multiple witnesses that the defendant physically assaulted the victim in July of 2019. Thus, there was a significant risk that the jury would draw the impermissible inference that because the defendant assaulted the victim before by striking her in the head, he must be the one who fatally assaulted her in December by again striking her in the head. And the difference that they're drawing here is that in the assault case, there are witnesses like the uncle. In the murder case, there's only one witness, Kayla, his wife.
Think about what the jury knew. They heard about the July assault. They heard Adam's own uncle testify that Adam had admitted to hitting Harmony. They heard about the pattern. And then they heard about the December murder. And the court concluded not that the jury definitely convicted for the wrong reason, but that there was a significant risk that the prior assault evidence had bled into their thinking about the murder. That instead of asking themselves whether the evidence in the murder case proved guilt beyond a reasonable doubt on its own terms, the jury may have looked at the assault and thought, this is who this man is. This is what he does. Of course he killed her. In law, this is called propensity reasoning. It means convicting someone not because of what the evidence specifically shows they did, but because of what the evidence suggests they are prone to do. And our legal system, with good reason, treats propensity reasoning as impermissible. You cannot convict someone of murder because they once committed assault. You have to prove the murder independently. The court's own language is precise on this point.
A fair trial, right? So they're not even concluding that it actually did, but it could have. It could have. And that's where our law is, and in, courts across the country may rule that way. Judge Politan here, not the real Judge Politan, but this Judge Politan, would not have. I would have said there was an eyewitness testimony. There was no evidence to refute that eyewitness testimony. What is the jury supposed to do? An eyewitness testifies, yeah, I saw this guy commit this murder. And there's nothing to refute, which was Kayla Montgomery saying, no, Adam did it. I saw him do it and described how he did it. Adam didn't testify. He didn't even show up for this trial. He didn't get back in the courtroom until the sentencing. There was an empty chair in the courtroom that was convicted. And he's getting a second chance. I don't believe he deserves a second chance because I believe the jury believed Kayla.
It found that trying the second-degree assault and second-degree murder charges in a single trial jeopardized the defendant's right to a fair trial. Not that it definitely prejudiced the jury, not that it certainly produced the wrong result, that it could have, that the risk was real enough to require a new trial. And here is the part that makes this ruling genuinely debatable among people who take the law seriously. There was an eyewitness to the murder. Kayla Montgomery, Adam's own wife, was in that car. She testified that she saw Adam commit the murder. She described how it happened. She said, I saw him do it. That is direct evidence, not circumstantial evidence, which is evidence that requires the jury to draw inferences. Direct evidence. An eyewitness saying, I was present. I saw this person do this act. I am telling you what I observed with my own eyes. Defense attorneys spend entire careers complaining that they have nothing but circumstantial evidence and that juries are being asked to speculate. Here, the prosecution had exactly what defense attorneys always say they lack. And the appellate court looked at that direct eyewitness testimony and said, we don't believe that's why the jury convicted him.
Direct evidence. How many times have criminal defense attorneys say there's no direct, this is merely a circumstantial case, there is no evidence. We have direct evidence. An eyewitness said, I saw it, this is what happened. I saw what happened. And the court in New Hampshire is saying, no, we don't think that's why she was found guilty. The other assault really kind of tainted that jury's view of all of this. And therefore, those two cases should have been tried separately. There should have been an assault trial and there should have been a murder trial, but they should not have been tried together. Here's the conclusion. We conclude that under these circumstances, trying the second-degree assault and second-degree murder charges in a single trial jeopardized the defendant's right to...
Think about what that means for a moment. The court is not saying Kayla lied. It is not saying the eyewitness testimony was insufficient. It is saying that in its judgment, the jury's decision was more likely driven by the prior assault evidence than by the direct eyewitness testimony. And because that's unknowable, because there is no way to reach inside a jury's collective mind and be certain, the conviction cannot stand. Let me ask you something directly, because I think this is the question at the heart of this case. If a jury hears an eyewitness say, I saw it happen, and there is no contradicting testimony, no evidence to refute it, nothing, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to disbelieve the witness for no reason? Are they supposed to acquit? Because the alternative, which is that they convicted for the right reason, on the right evidence, based on direct testimony that was never challenged, is apparently not something the appellate court was willing to assume. This is the part of the ruling that sits uneasily.
The country may rule that way. Judge Politan here, not the real Judge Politan, but this Judge Politan, would not have. I would have said, there was an eyewitness testimony. There was no evidence to refute that eyewitness testimony. What is the jury supposed to do? An eyewitness testifies, yeah, I saw this guy commit this murder. And there's nothing to refute it. There's no evidence to refute it. No other testimony. Nothing, nada, niente, nothing.
And it is the kind of thing that reveals how the machinery of justice can produce outcomes that are procedurally defensible and morally bewildering at the same time. Adam Montgomery is not free. He is not coming home. He has weapons charges that will keep him incarcerated for at least another 30 years. The murder conviction being overturned does not open a door to his release today or anytime soon. New Hampshire will have to retry the case. They will presumably call Kayla as a witness again. They will present the physical evidence again. They will tell the story of what happened to that duffel bag again. And without the July assault evidence, which will likely be excluded at the new trial because its exclusion is the entire basis for the new trial, they will build their case around the direct testimony of the woman who was in the car. They will probably convict him again, and they should.
Adam Montgomery still in prison, but he should never, ever, ever, ever have the opportunity to get out. So you're going to retry this case. New Hampshire's going to have to pull up their pants and retry the case. Montgomery likely won't show up again. You'll put in the same evidence. You'll probably be precluded from putting in that July 19th assault evidence, right? That's not going to come in. There may be arguments for and against, but it's not coming in because that's the reason for the new trial. So it'll be a slightly different trial, but you'll have the same eyewitness, likely the same unrefuted evidence. You'll have all the physical evidence. You'll hear about what he did with the body afterwards, all of that.
But here is what Harmony Montgomery's story demands we remember after we turn off this video and go back to our lives. The system failed her before Adam Montgomery ever got to lay a hand on her. It failed her in a Massachusetts courtroom when a judge handed her to a violent, drug-addicted, unemployed felon without a full hearing because her mother, who was actively seeking treatment and fighting to get clean, happened to be in another courthouse at the same moment. One absence, one missed hearing, and a child's life was handed to the person most likely to destroy it. The lesson here is not just about Adam Montgomery. It is not even just about joinder or propensity evidence or the technical rules that govern what a jury is and is not allowed to think. The lesson is that the system does not protect children by default. It protects procedure. It protects process. It protects the integrity of the mechanism. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, protecting the mechanism means that the person the mechanism was supposed to protect is the one who ends up paying the price. Harmony was 5 years old, and nobody reported her missing. Not one person called to check on her.
And when Harmony was murdered, nobody reported her missing. Nobody. Imagine that. 5 years old and gone. No uncle, no aunt, no grandma, no grandpa. No one was saying, "Where's Harmony? Where's Harmony? Hey, I want to talk to Harmony." She didn't have any of that in her life.
Not a grandparent, not an aunt, not a neighbor. She existed in the margins of a system that saw her as a line in a custody file and a monthly check. And when she disappeared from both, nobody noticed for a long time. There are photos of her smiling. Think about that. Somewhere in that brief, impossible life, surrounded by everything it was surrounded by, she found a moment to smile for a camera. She did not know yet what the future held. She did not know that the system that was supposed to stand between her and harm would step aside at the critical moment. She just smiled.
Yet there are photos of her smiling. And I think about how on earth, where did that come from? How did she find a moment to smile at all? Being dealt the hand that she was dealt.
She deserved so much more than what any of this gave her. She still hasn't been found. Adam Montgomery was offered a deal. give up the location, and receive a 35-year sentence. He refused. He has never told anyone where Harmony is. Her mother is still waiting. Justice in this case is not a courtroom verdict. It is a location. And that location is the one thing Adam Montgomery has managed to keep to himself.
And don't forget, in this case, Harmony Montgomery still has never been found. Adam Montgomery has never given up that information. He was offered a deal here. Give the information, we'll give you 35 years. 35 years, just tell us where Harmony is. Harmony's mom wants to find her. Harmony deserves to rest in peace.
Through everything, the trial, the conviction, the appeal, and whatever comes next. What you can take from this, the thing that stays with you as something useful, when you watch a trial, when you read about a verdict, resist the instinct to assume the outcome reflects the full weight of the evidence. Verdicts are built on rules. Rules about what evidence can come in, how it can be used, what inferences are permitted, and what inferences are forbidden. A jury can only work with what they are given inside those rules. And the rules, for all their wisdom, were written by people trying to prevent one kind of injustice. And sometimes, in preventing it, they make space for another. The best defense against that gap is understanding it exists.
We'll stay on the story. If Adam Montgomery gets tried again, we will get our court TV cameras inside there. We'll show you the evidence, and we'll expose the evil that surrounded the life of little Harmony Montgomery. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for joining us for this special breaking news edition of Vinnie Politan Investigates.
Harmony Montgomery's name deserves to be remembered, not as a case number, not as a data point in an appellate opinion, as a child who smiled for a camera and was never given the chance to grow up and decide what kind of life she wanted. Remember her name. And if you have children, hold them a little closer tonight.